It's my house and I live here. Got some stuff on my screen, man. All right, this is for those of you who follow my Caitlin Clark commentary, this is the video, at least, that I was waiting to do. And because I've been saying what I think is going to happen in the playoffs, I'm not here to say I'm prophetic or anything like that. But I saw this coming, and it's a good thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. All right, welcome to CNN. I am your host, the underdog, Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. All right, we are on the road to 5K at least. We're like at 41, 42 something. I would appreciate if y'all would like and subscribe. Let's get it there. Let's get there. We're trying to get there ASAP. ASAP Rocky. ASAP Ferg. We're trying to get there. All right. So on Wednesday night, the Indiana Fever got swept in the second game of the best out of three series against the Connecticut Sun. Those two teams had a very tumultuous relationship throughout the season. I mean, for real, if we're being honest, because of who Caitlin Clark was and what she accomplished and what she brought, there was a lot of tumultuous relationships with teams. But Connecticut was uniquely different because one of her teammates, Nalissa Smith, is dating one of the stars of Connecticut, Dejanay Carrington. And Dejanay Carrington said a lot of things through social media. You know, it's really interesting. People say a lot of things through social media, and then they backtrack it or say that that's not what they meant. And they get mad at people for reacting to what they said. And it's like, well, I don't think it's our job to say like, well, what do they mean by that? Let me just wait until, you know, we understand. I know even though some people in the English language are trying to hijack pronouns and things don't mean what they are. I get etymology, you know, gay 50 years meant happy. It means something different today. So again, we understand etymology, we understand it, but for the most part, I think people are intelligent enough and we understand what's being communicated, the context is being communicated in, and the pattern and the historical contextualized statements that have been made by certain individuals. So I think it's kind of disingenuous to assume that we all don't understand what is being communicated when you say certain things through social media, especially when you're not saying your account got hacked, all right? So Dejanay Carrington has made a lot of statements through social media and all this stuff. And you know, I didn't hear anybody talk about this particular storyline, and I don't know if it's legitimate or not, but I was thinking, like, I wonder how much of Dejanay Carrington's beef, if you will, with Caitlin Clark was due to the fact that her girlfriend, Nalissa Smith, whatever she thought was going to happen in the year, or her whatever year she thought she was going to have, she didn't have it. You know, I think sometimes we forget that most of the women that play in the WNBA, there's only 12 teams so far. They got more expansion teams coming. But most of those women that play in the W were the beasts in college. They weren't sitting on the bench in college. You can't get to, out of 144 women, all of them had to be stars in college. If we were to go and look at every one of them, I could be wrong, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find a walk-on in college just sitting on the bench in the WNBA. There's too many women that can ball that would be there that would take up. So all those women were good. And so I think you kind of expect, you know, to have a good season, or you have visions of what you end a season and you think about what you're going to work on and how you're going to improve next season. I don't know any athlete, especially on a professional level, unless you're just like, man, I'm just getting a paycheck. I don't even care, you know. But if you're there, like if you really feel like, no, I worked hard to get to this place, I want to play in this league, you're thinking about all you're going to do in the off season. You know, some changes are going to happen, but you're focusing on how you're going to grow, what you're going to do. And then all of a sudden, off season comes, you work out, you do all these things, you get back, you show up to training camp, you're ready to go. And then here comes the phenom that everybody's talking about and drowns you out. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of Dejanay Carrington's beef with Caitlin Clark, who really said nothing negative about anyone in post or pre-game interviews. Now, during the game, I think she jawbones a little bit, but we understand that's perspective in sports. Why can't she do that when people can knock her down on the ground, right? That's just, I mean, it's going to come when she got into the little tiff where she kind of push each other at the end in the game on Wednesday night. What do you expect? I mean, this girl's been knocked around throughout, a lot of the season. Probably hit harder than anybody else in the season. You're gonna get some of that, right? They're puppies, but even a puppy, if you back it into a corner, is gonna growl and attack at some point. Ain't gonna keep being afraid. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the drama between these two teams is connected to the fact that Dejanay Carrington may be taking up her girlfriend's offense because NaLyssa Smith and her brother more than anyone was just saying wild stuff throughout the year. So I doubt, I would be surprised if NaLyssa Smith was playing for the Indiana Fever next season. I would be surprised. I think they can make some moves in the off season because she's not that good. I don't even think Temi Fagbenle was that good. I think when she first came, she was decent, but I don't think she was that good. I think she's older and the game got away from her. Or maybe she never fully recovered from her injury and so forth. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dejanay Carrington tries to get NaLyssa Smith on her team, Connecticut Sun. So we'll see. So that ended. I had a feeling that they would lose the game, and I said why on a couple of occasions, but mainly because they desired to get to the playoffs. That was their goal. And again, if you know anything about sports and you play on the team, when you have a unified goal that everybody locks in on and you get to that goal, you've accomplished it. You made it. And I think they did not think they could win the championship. I don't think they tried to win the championship. Sure, they were disappointed they lost the game. Kelsey Mitchell didn't high-five a teammate after the game because she was in her feelings. I get it. I've lost. I've won championships and I've lost them. And it hurts to lose. Even if you didn't think you were going to get there, it still hurts whenever your season is over. Because you live for this. You practice. Your world is this. And now it's like, all right, what am I going to do? I mean, let's keep it 1,000, right? Let's keep it a thou-wow. Most of these players don't have money outside of the W like Caitlin Clark does. They don't have multi-million-dollar endorsements. They don't have, they're not going to make them. So a lot of them will now have to go overseas to play in other countries and then come back so they don't even get the time they're not going to be able to do what Caitlin Clark's going to do, which is rest. And she deserves it, though. And we'll talk about that in a second. So what I want to do in this video is all throughout, if you followed me over the last couple of months, especially since I've talked about this stuff, I obviously talk about a lot of other things, but Caitlin Clark is one of those things. Indiana Fever, I love sports, but I never really talked about sports a lot because when you're doing a YouTube channel, sometimes you don't know what you want to do with the channel. You start doing one thing. I'm a pastor, I'm a Christian, and I'm talking about theological things, and then people are liking your content, but you're also trying to grow, and if your content's not growing, you start adding different things that you'd like to talk about. You start adding sports, you start adding social commentary, all these different things. And so I like basketball. I've always liked it. I was impressed with Caitlin Clark. And so those became some of my highest grossing videos. And I got more people subscribing and watching other videos because of those videos. So it's going to be interesting because my channel is not just the Caitlin, even though some players just turn to the Caitlin Clark fan club channel. That's only because those are the videos you watch. I have a lot of content that I talk about that has nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. I try to bring my faith into everything I talk about, as many of you know. But her season is over, so I'm not going to keep doing, well, what would Caitlin Clark, what is she doing right now, videos? I'm going, there's other content that I can talk about, but I've enjoyed it. And Lord willing, if I'm here and she's here next season, she'll be back on the radar. Unless something crazy happens, I doubt I'll be talking about her that much while she's in her off season, unless something crazy pops up. And it's just, so what I want to do in this video is I don't want to highlight the stats that she did. I don't want to re-talk about all the records that she broke. You've heard me say that throughout the season. You've heard other people talk about that. I don't want to talk about speculative beefs between these people, the new president, and are they going to fire Christy Sides? And I don't care about that type of stuff. That's all gossip to me. What I want to talk about in this video is I want to give a social commentary on Caitlin Clark and what she has meant bigger, whether she meant to or not. I don't think Caitlin Clark, if I'm being honest, based on what I've seen her say, I do not think she came into the WNBA coming out of college trying to do anything but play ball. I do not think she cared about social media. I do not think she cared about like trying to impress or depress anyone. I do not think I think she is a quintessential ball player. She just wants to play ball and she wants to win. And her attitude, they like her coaches in college liking it to that Mamba mentality, Kobe, that Michael Jordan, that LeBron James, just that. Not saying she'll ever be on that level, but I think what she showed us this season gives us, barring any injuries or any act of God, if the natural progression of talent, which she has, continues to grow, she is going to be phenomenal in this game for a long time. It will be interesting to see in a year or two if she's able to continue to carry that kind of excitement. And I actually think because they lost in the first round, she will next season for sure. I think a lot of people are going to be wanting to see how she improves, what she works on. But I want to do a Caitlin Clark social commentary. It's rare that a person comes in and has such an impact. So they call her a generational talent, which is true. I don't always know what people mean when they say generational talent, but she's one of one. You know, one of a few, I'll say that. She's good. She's good. That doesn't mean you're the best at every position. LeBron James was a generational talent, but it took him quite a while to win an NBA championship. I think Steph Curry's a generational talent. It took him a while to win the champ. Michael Jordan was a generational. It took him a few years to win. When he came in, it took him 7 years in the league before they won their first chip. So generational talent doesn't mean the best at everything, the best, better than everyone else, but it means you're different. You're different. You're bringing something different. And it wasn't just numbers and fan base and selling out arenas and all that stuff we've talked about. I want to talk about Caitlin Clark as a social commentary and what we saw happen this year. She got drafted, and there were people saying things before she got drafted. Diana Taurasi on Scott Van Pelt's show, sitting beside Sue Bird, they asked her about Caitlin Clark, and I think this was just after. It was either at halftime of Iowa playing Connecticut in the Final Four. It was either at halftime of that game or after the game. But Diana Taurasi made this statement that said, look, SVP, reality is going to come. Reality check is coming. I may not say it verbatim because sometimes I get caught up and people correct me as if stay with me. You know what I'm trying to say. But she said, look, reality's coming. You may look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but now you're coming to the W where women play ball. And everyone said she was hating. And I think there was hate in that for sure, but I think she was just being honest. It's just going to be different coming into the league. But at that time, there was no racial conversation. Now, right before she got drafted, the only kind of conversation that was happening was Asia Wilson was the first one because it was announced that Caitlin Clark had a 10-figure Nike deal for a shoe. So that's at least minimum $10 million, right? She had a Nike deal, all right? And, it was like 10 million. I forgot it was. It was 10 million, I think, or something like that for the shoe. And there were people like, wow, she hasn't even played in the WNBA. And that's when a lot of the rhetoric started to talk. And that's when you realize that Caitlin Clark got pulled into a very complex sexual, racial, commercial, tumultuous political climate. I don't think she knew what she was getting into. And she wasn't supposed to. She was just playing ball. She was a gym rat. She was one of them people, when I played ball back in the day, there was always one person that would like always be in athletic gear, like that person that always wanted to play ball. Like you just knew what their dream was, right? Caitlin Clark was one of those people. You just knew what her dream was. She wanted to win. She was a competitor and you loved it. And you saw it come out on the basketball court. Even when they lost on Wednesday night, she wasn't giving up. She was scoring, balling and all that. So she balled out. But the team lost, but she balled out. She's going to go down swinging. And that's what you want when you see an athlete. You respect athletes that lose, but you respect athletes that play to win and not playing not to lose. She plays to win. The great ones like a Tom Brady, they play to win. You want to win. You're not playing not to lose. When you're up in the score, you're going to keep balling out. You're not going to be like, all right, we up 20. Let's just slow down, let the clock run out. No, you hate that type of stuff. In the football games on Monday night, my Washington Commanders, what I loved it was 4th and 4, and we weren't like on the other side of the field. We weren't close to the goal line, but you watched Jaden Daniels. That's my quarterback. That's my quarterback. You watched him. You could see his mouth being like, "Let's go!" Like he was trying to tell the coach, "No, don't. We're not punting. Let's go for it. Let's go. It's 4th and 4. Let's go." And when I saw that, see, that's what you want. You love heart. Whether you know it or not, what you appreciate about athletes is heart. When we watch these games, like we watch these movies and Kevin Costner, like when it was a game and if you build it, they will come. Like what gets our goosebumps, feeling goosebumps, and what gets us is seeing the heart of people. That's why when you watch sports and the team has won a championship, and then when they win it again, they talk about the heart of a champion, right? We love heart. We love the underdog story, and we love heart because that's what it means to be human. When you have heart, it's the David versus Goliath. We love that. Even when a team is losing, if a person has heart, they will be respected by people. And over the course of the season, Caitlin Clark's heart was demonstrated. By the time the All-Star game hit, people had changed their tune. Not everyone, but a lot of people had said, this girl, look, we thought she was just going to come in. She wasn't. She's got heart, and she's a baller. When Diana Taurasi said, you know what, the league is in good hands, she said the league is in good hands. And what I love about her is that she studies the game. She knows the game. This is what she said, I think, after the All-Star game, somewhere around there. She said that, right? And that was sort of like okay, you got the presumable GOAT's approval, things started to change. But I don't think Caitlin Clark realized that she was getting pulled into a complex sexual, racial, commercial, tumultuous political climate. And by God's grace, she stayed away from it. But she was the poster child for people using her name, using her lack of saying things in a way that didn't faze her, obviously, but created a dynamic of like Caitlin Clark fans versus other fans. So let's talk about the sexual climate. Here's the reality. And this is, I've said this before, but this is just, listen, on this channel, we keep it 1,000, all right? Here's the reality. I proved this before from stats. The WNBA is the first professional sports team that the Pride Initiative, which is LGBTQ, got behind it, right? And so it promoted, like when you go to games, there was a lot of pride, which is gay pride stuff, that was associated with this league. In fact, even though the stats show that like less than 30% of the league identifies as gay or bi or whatever, that's not the way it's presented to us. Like as a fan from the outside looking in, there seems to be an unusually high attendance of people who identify with that community that play this particular sport. Now, in the grand scheme of things, does that matter? No, but the Pride Initiative made it matter and made it a part of the sports. There are people who have sexual preferences in every sport, but the WNBA was the first sport that really made it like a thing. Like, this is what we're celebrating, the sexual preferences of these women. And especially when they were same-sex preferences, right? So on one level, and let me tell you why this is important. You know, when Olga Brafel, when that in 2015 passed and gay marriage became law, you know, prior to that, 7 years to that in 2008, I don't know if you remember this, in 2008, California, of all places, they shot down Proposition 8, which would have approved of gay marriage. And it was a shock to everyone because California at the time was such a liberal, progressive state. When they said no, it was a big blow to the LGBT community, right? Big blow. And there was like there were these stickers that people would put over their mouth that said no, hate, an H and a number 8, saying like proposition. It was a shock. People were like, oh my gosh, California said no to this? And it was a big deal. And then you had this campaign within that, the LGBT, that was like, it gets better. And it was like this thing. And I get it. These folks, whether you agree with their sexuality or not, which I do not agree with their sexual preferences. I'll say that right now. I do not. As a Christian, as a pastor, I agree with the Bible's sexual ethic. And I don't care if people get offended at that. because no one died on the cross for my sins and no one has the ability to judge me. Jesus said, look, do not fear those who can kill the body. Fear those who can kill both body, and fear him who can kill both body and soul in hell. I just happen to fear God more. And so I agree with what the Bible says because of that. So while I don't agree with the sexual ethic, I still think you can play sports. And in America, you have to be honest, America does not, it's not a Christian nation. It's if you look at the laws of the governing documents of America, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, then you can't really legitimately deny these people these things based on their sexuality. So if you're a constitutionalist, then you have to allow for them to have these things. Now, I have to, in the country, we tolerate these things. So I have no problem with them doing what they do. But here was the problem. After Proposition 8 failed in 2008, and then Obama flipped his position. He said he was transitioning, or however, whatever. And all of a sudden it passed in 2015. It became the law of the land. There was a transition. It became clear to many of us who were not in that community that it wasn't really about getting married. It wasn't about that. It wasn't getting married. It was about justifying a sexual preference that people would have had a problem with historically, and now saying you can't have a problem with this, right? And we accepted that on some level, even if we disagreed on certain things, which we disagree on a lot of things, right? But then the T of that community rose up. The T was relatively quiet. The trans community was quiet until Obergefell got passed in 2015, gay marriage laws got passed. And then all of a sudden, by 2017, that LGBT, the T became the biggest letter of all of those three. And then there began to be a demand for their rights. And there were two things that happened that were upsetting to most people. One, there was a manipulative tactic, which basically said, if you don't approve and accept of and change your mind on trans rights, that these people will commit suicide. They will unalive themselves, as we have to say on YouTube. And the problem with that was, like, no one saw that as a mental health problem. Like, if I say to you, hey, listen, I need you to understand, and again, I'm not trying to be trivial, but I'm trying to, because people say, well, that's not a gender, but just hear me out in terms of an analogy. If I say to you, I identify as really thin, I'm anorexic, right? Psychologically, I think of myself as weighing 110 pounds, right? If I tell you that if you disagree with me, I'm going to unalive myself, take my own life. That was the way that a lot of people felt like, hey, love is love. Let these people, why wasn't that considered a severe mental health issue? What they were trying to do was make people who don't agree say, well, I got the mental health issue because I have to pretend like you're something psychologically that you're not biologically. Now, it's one thing if we're doing Halloween and you're doing some cosplay. It's another thing to say, you want me to legitimately believe that you are something psychologically that you'll never be biologically, even if you have surgery. It was a major shift in the way we think about everything. And it was at that point when America moved from a post-scientific society. The Age of Enlightenment really became the Age of Entitlement in 2017, right? Because the Age of Enlightenment was the introduction of reason, scientific method, all of it. So you get the I think, therefore I am, right? You get that kind of idea coming out of it. The scientific method, hypothesis, analysis, theory. But now it's the age of entitlement. I am entitled for everyone, to support how I feel, no matter what. That was very challenging for a lot of people. And because we all have children, many of us do, we have different things that we're thinking about, it changed the fabric of how we understand reality. But the LGBT, the T community, more than anyone, didn't care about that. They didn't seem to care. What they cared about, what the Bible calls in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8, the Bible will highlight love is patient, is kind, it is not rude, it is not envy, and it does not insist on its own way. So it was ironic that the community that said love is love was actually doing biblically one of the most unloving things by insisting on your own way, insisting that people become allies and support you. And that was a big problem. So when the WNBA identified with this initiative, it turned a lot of people off, because here's the reality, and here's what I think that community learned at the Olympics. Despite the growing acceptance and support for that community, there's a vast majority of us who are not going to be told that we have to accept anything that doesn't seem right to us. And I think when you saw that at the Olympics, when all the pushback that they got for having, presumably mocking the Last Supper, whether they did or not, you saw that. You saw that when the boxer, who everyone thought was a trans man, the pushback, you saw that, like, people have gotten tired of being told we have the mental health problem if we do not agree with your sexual preference. And I just don't. I'm sorry. If I got mental health issues, it is not because I don't know what a woman is. That's not my problem. And so when you have this tactic where you say you need to accept this or people will harm themselves, no one thought that was a mental health issue. I mean, I would be like, Mo, I would be concerned if you told me if I'm going to accept something about you, you're going to take your life. Man, that's way worse than what you want me to accept. But that's not the way it was presented. It was presented like, actually, we have the mental health problem if you don't agree. So you build you build this in the community, and there's a culture war. There's a war on who defines the pursuit of happiness. That's what it is. A lot of this is if you really strip away all of this stuff, it's for the American history had largely white men, and then white people were defining the American dream, the pursuit of happiness. Then laws changed and different things happened, and women got to vote and got to have their own bank accounts. Black people got civil rights laws, and all this stuff started to change. And now we're in this. The culture war is not left versus right. The culture war is who defines the pursuit of happiness. Who defines that? Because it used to be the ability to own property. Then they changed that because they didn't want people who looked a certain way to not own property and think that they had a right to that, so it became the pursuit of happiness. Do your research. I'm not going to fill all the details in for you. So that's what we're fighting over, the pursuit of happiness. As a believer, we're fighting more for the pursuit of holiness. Happiness it comes and goes, but holiness is something that stays. That's changing. That's the way we think, and that's why we just can't accept any old thing, because we're on the pursuit of holiness, not just happiness. Happiness is when the Redskins, when the Commanders win a game on Monday Night Football. That's when I'm happy. I'm in my room like, woo! I'm screaming like that. That's happy, but that leaves. But holiness is something that weaves in and out of all what we're trying to live by. So you have this crazy culture war of sexuality and a league that is sponsored by the Pride Initiative that promotes this sexuality. And what it didn't take into account was a lot of people were forced to become allies or forced to accept things because you tried to strong arm bully and manipulate us because you feel like you've been bullied based on your sexuality. That I understand. But what I think they didn't count on is that everyone's just not going to go for it. Everyone's not going to go for it. So what does that have to do with Caitlin Clark? Well, Caitlin Clark comes and honestly, she has a boyfriend. She just has a boyfriend that she gushes about in social media. So we're not even talking about the fact that she can ball. We're talking about the sexual climate that she got pulled into. Now, we know that she doesn't have a problem with the community because her best friend, Kate Martin, we didn't know it until later in the season, is a lesbian. Or at least she had pictures with her girlfriend, and it was like, oh, look how cute they are. That became a thing. We didn't even know that. That's her best friend. So when you play women's sports, basketball in particular, you're around this type of thing. We've heard rumors of people, other players who weren't with it, that struggle with these things, right? So Caitlin Clark comes in, and one of the most, and for us, many of us who think this is a league of let's be clear, it's like the league of lesbians. That's what it seems like. You don't see this in women's volleyball that I'm aware of. You don't see it in women's soccer, but for some reason, basketball is the league where there's a large population of people who identify as lesbian, and it's just, you just play a sport. It's just really interesting, and I don't know if anyone's done any scientific studies about why this sport draws this type of sexual preference. But I know people who did not want their daughters to play basketball because they were afraid that if they play basketball, then they're going to have to become this. Now, you can get offended and say, well, let them be who they want, but there's not a parent in this world that does not have dreams and hopes for their child. A good parent. So you can say whatever you want about that. which is a different thing we'll get to in a second. But parents, there were just a lot of parents didn't want to go to games. They didn't want I know people who said, I don't want my daughter to play basketball. I'm sorry. And they were upset because their daughters liked basketball. They were good. They wanted to play. But they were like, no. Because they knew that for some reason, this sport leads to a sexual preference. So Caitlin Clark comes, and she's not the only one. The rookie class came, but she was the most talked about. She just has a boyfriend, fam. And she clearly supports the LGBT because her best friend, we saw them hugging at the games and they played in college together. She knew that she was gay. She had no problem with that. Caitlin Clark said nothing negative about it. But she has a boyfriend. And what it did from a sexual climate level was it gave some people hope that, like, hey, you can actually play this sport. If I'm a dad and my daughter wants to play, Caitlin Clark is a role model to me. Not that she's the only one but she seems to be, she's the one everyone's focusing on. And so you can just play basketball. You don't have to get caught up, at least from right now. I mean, obviously we don't know what will happen 5 years from now. Cheryl Swoops came into the league and was heterosexual and was married and all of that, and then eventually, so we don't know. But my point is this. When they would scan the fan bases, all this talk about Indiana Fever fans, they're not talking about the fans that go to the game primarily. Because whenever I watched the game and they showed those stands, there were so many young girls there with their dads and with their families. And I think for the first time in many, which is why I think the attendance skyrocketed this season. People were like, okay, I can bring my daughter to a game, especially when we go see Caitlin Clark, because we know it's not going to be about the sexual preferences of people in the league. Pride Initiative is not going to be the focus. It's not going to be about their narratives. That's why people were cheering for Caitlin every stadium she went to. There were some stadiums that, like, it almost sounded like Indiana Fever fans were traveling to every stadium. It wasn't that. It was people appreciated who she was because she came into a sexual climate and just said, I'm just a typical normal. I have a boyfriend. I love him. We're cute together. All of it. Caitlin Clark is not amazingly attractive. That's not the draw. The draw was she's a woman that we understand is traditional. I'm not even saying cisgender. I hate that. Ain't no cis about me at all. I think that cis is the country, sissies. But that's a different conversation. But she has a boyfriend, fam. Cameron Brinks has a boyfriend. Angel Reese, it was like, whoa, okay, this seems to be okay. So now you got dads and moms comfortable bringing their daughters to games, specifically to watch this woman play, and she wasn't trying to do this. But I think what people don't realize is, I think people have wanted to support the WNBA and wanted to get behind it. But if you got behind it prior to this season, you were essentially saying, I got to support the Pride Initiative. And I'm sorry, many people are just not going to do that. Listen, you can push Americans around for a while, and you can use fear to do some things. But at some point, the American spirit is going to push back. And you're not going to keep convincing people that they got to accept and believe stuff after a while. People are just going to get tired of it. And I think we're seeing that now. The culture is shifting a little bit. Culture's shifting. Like, they had their way for a while, and it was a lot of manipulation. And if you're not an ally, it's like, fam, you ain't an ally of me. You're not an ally. So, but now what you see is, in the sexual climate, maybe I can let my daughter play basketball. Let's support her. I want my daughter to be like her. Not only as the athlete, as the player, but there's nothing wrong with the parent, with a dad wanting his daughter to marry a man. And it's almost like you should be ashamed of that. No, you should not. I want my 3 boys to marry women that were biologically born. And I tell them all the time, you're not getting married until you see her birth certificate, her baby pictures, middle and high school. I'm sorry. You can get offended at that if you want. If you got to unsubscribe, I understand. But that's not going to change my mind at all. There's nothing wrong with the parent wanting this for their child. That's what we do. That's what we do. And so now, if you're a dad, you can be like, man, maybe my daughter can play. I want her to be like Caitlin because I want her to work hard. I want her to play. I don't want her to be distracted by this sexual climate. And I wouldn't mind if she dated a dude. There's nothing wrong with that. Caitlin Clark got pulled in, and people got offended at her, not because she was a staunch supporter of this, but because it's just who she was. And so, to her credit, she ignored it. The racial climate. Caitlin Clark got pulled into a complex racial climate. Because in this day and age, especially because of 2014 and Black Lives Matter and all of that, Black Lives Matter, let me tell you why I'm going to use strong language here, but it's not literally hate, but I hated them. And let me tell you why. And what I mean is I strongly disliked what they did because I think there were genuine concerns that I think black people were disproportionately shot and disproportionately given prison time by law enforcement, by the criminal justice system. I agree with that. I agree with them. I'm sorry if that seems woke to you, then that means then it's sleep. Then you seem sleep to me. I think it's pretty painfully obvious, which is why people, let me tell you this, when people marched after George Floyd got killed, no one was carrying Karl Marx signs. No one was carrying Patrisse Cullors and them signs. Their faces weren't on nothing. People believed in the slogan Black Lives Matter because don't insult our intelligence. We know that throughout history, when we say Black Lives Matter, now I don't agree with the organization. I couldn't stand them, and we'll come back to that. But people understood the phrase, the words, the etymology, Black Lives Matter, and they understood we're not talking about that they matter to black people so don't have abortions. That was a conservative trope. What people understood was black lives seemed disproportionately less important than white and other people's lives. That's what people meant. And they used the criminal justice system because of this. And then the pushback is, well, if they commit this many, they commit the most violent crimes. So if they stop committing, okay. But let's talk about that for a second. If that's true, then you would have to prove that violent crimes across America have a mandatory minimum, which means that the judge cannot change. The judge's hands are tied. So there was a. I live in D.C., the D.C. area. When I was in the streets, there was a period where if you got caught with a handgun, a loaded handgun, you had to do a mandatory 3 years. And if you got caught in Virginia, that was a mandatory 5 years. What that means is if the judge hears your story and you have a great reason why you got caught with a gun and it makes perfect sense, but if he has mandatory minimum requirements, his hands are tied. He has to sentence you to 3 years because the law requires that, right? In those situations, it makes sense. But if you do your research, the vast majority of violent crimes, maybe they do more now, but if they do now, maybe, but they don't have mandatory minimums, which means judges have the discretion of how much time they give an individual. So the question then becomes, if violent crimes do not have a mandatory minimum and judges are evaluating a case-by-case basis, we're not even talking about recidivism right now, why are black people disproportionately given a lot more prison time? And why are black people disproportionately found guilty when they're actually innocent? And you have there's a lot of that stuff, right? So there are people that have a problem with the criminal justice system. I get it. I totally get it. I don't think it's all what people said, but there's some issues there. There's some racism issues in it, and there's a racial climate, right? That's the reality. There are things that are different. Caitlin Clark comes into the league, and people thought a lot of the racial climate was between her and Angel Reese. Because Angel Reese did the whole thing in college and she won the championship. And people were saying, well, there's racism because they support. That wasn't the racial climate that people were talking about. And that wasn't what most of the people I think were struggling with. Because of Black Lives Matter, and then what I said, the reason why I hated what they did is because they took a real genuine concern that could have been brought up in a genuine way, and they made it their own and turned it into a sexuality thing, a gender thing, a Marxism thing, a deconstruction of the nuclear family movement. That was those women. That wasn't what most people were talking about, which is why it fell apart. If it was the burden and passion of all those people that supported Black Lives Matter, then it would still be going on strong. No, it faded because those women had a selfish, satanic, sinful agenda, and it dissipated by the grace of God because it was exposed that they were just frauds. But if people really bought into the ideology of them, Black Lives Matter would be strong. It's not. It's dissipated. The chapters closed in a lot of the country. There's some remnants here and there. We still see a sign here and there. But for the most part, it was like a phenomenon that came and went. It was Miley Cyrus. It came in like a wrecking ball. Boom. And now it's pretty much gone. Because nobody believed in the end of the nuclear family no, that was them. That's why I couldn't stand them. And by that, I mean what they stood for. Obviously, they're made in God's image. They need Jesus. I'm not angry at them, but I couldn't stand what they did. There were legitimate concerns, and they made those things political. They made them. They created this dynamic that everything has to be all or nothing. It has to be You got to destroy the nuclear family because that's racist. You got all of a sudden it became, no, Slim, we just talking about there are times where you don't have to kill black people just because you can. I fear for my safety. We saw some of them videos, fam. You were the one that had the gun. You know, we saw some of that, right? That's what people were worried about. But Black Lives Matter turned it into a climate where white people were on edge because you heard stuff like white privilege and white supremacy, all these things that were happening. And then in the midst of that comes Donald Trump, who I don't think Donald Trump is a racist at all. I think he's an opportunist. He just seized the moment and said things to make sure these people are happy, these people, all of that, right? But Caitlin Clark comes into this racial climate that has nothing to do with her. She's just because she's a white girl from Iowa. No, she has nothing to do with that. You came into a racial climate that automatically attached to itself a sexual identity that was connected because of Black Lives Matter, those women. You attach a sexual identity to just being a black, and then all of a sudden now, Caitlin Clark becomes the face of white supremacy because as a white girl who can play ball as good and better than most of the black women in that league, who is a heterosexual, not because she's opposed to homosexual, her best friend is gay, but because she likes men, all of a sudden it turned into this racial climate. And they tried to dumb it down to Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. That wasn't the real story. That wasn't the narrative at all. The real narrative was Caitlin Clark is popular and people are offended that she's popular and they're attributing racial motives. Now, don't get me wrong. In a country with hundreds of millions of people, of course there were people who were racist. Listen, of course there are police officers who are racist. Of course there are people who work in the banking industry who are racist. Of course there are. Like, what are we talking about? On one level, the left acts like racism should be all but eradicated. Sorry, no sin is going to be all but eradicated until Jesus returns. It used to make me mad, like, what you mean anti-racist? I mean, yeah, okay, if you want people to not act this way, sure, but like, you can't eradicate a sin issue. Only Jesus can do that. You can't do that by no movement. So it was just crazy to me to watch it. But Caitlin Clark got pulled into this thing. And they tried to make it about, Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. And so I support Angel Reese. As Angel Reese became the face of the black cause and Caitlin Clark became the face of white supremacy. No, what it was that all these things all meshed together. The race, the sexual climate became equivalent to the racial climate. And Caitlin Clark wasn't either of those. And people thought, no, she was a breath of fresh air, fam. Caitlin Clark was a wonderful distraction to all of the nonsense that we've been seeing and hearing about for years. Some of our favorite athletes all of a sudden get pulled in. That's why the whole shut up and dribble thing, I thought it was harsh and it was unnecessary for her to say that. But I understood on some level, like, man, look, we want you to take us away from our troubles, man. We're watching sports to feel different. We're watching sports to forget how crazy it is. We're watching sports to forget the dumb stuff that our president says. We're watching sports to forget the fact that our president doesn't even know where he is at any given moment. You know, like, people have real concerns, real fears. And when you watch a movie, you don't watch a movie to be reminded of what you're worried about. You watch a movie to forget. You watch sports to forget. And Caitlin Clark, because she wasn't a staunch supporter or denier of anything, she just played ball. She was a wonderful distraction for many of us. I think there were some people that liked her because she was the great white hope, but a lot of people liked her because she was just a white girl that had heart. That's all it really was. Yes, they were racist. Don't get in the comment, well, you just don't know. Man, get out of here. I'm as black as they come. I'm the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice that Tupac and King Kunta was talking about. I'm unapologetically black. People act like you can't say nothing negative. Man, I've been in the streets. I've been shot at, shot back, been locked up. I did all that. The stuff that people think is black, I did all of that. So can't nobody tell me nothing. When I say this stuff, I'm saying it as a black man that comes from that culture and sees that culture is wrong and evil. I see it for what it is. But I also see that white culture is wrong and evil. There are deeds of darkness on both sides, and I'm right here and going to tell you about it. Caitlin Clark got pulled into a racial climate that she didn't ask for, didn't even really understand what was going on. She didn't understand it. Angel Reese tried to exploit it by saying people need to watch. I'm the reason why people are watching too. She did it for a different reason. Angel Reese wasn't doing it for a racial reason. Asia Wilson was the first one to say that Caitlin Clark's only getting shoes because she's white. But she said that, but even when they did an interview with her and Becky Hammon was like, what are you talking about? Like, get rid of like the race stuff. And Asia Wilson kind of looked like she didn't realize it was your player that started that narrative. It was the woman beside you, Becky Hammon. She said that. It was her right there. Her right there. Go like this, Becky. That was her. She started that narrative. Diana Taurasi wasn't saying it as a racial thing because she's not even black. Angel Reese wasn't saying it as a racial thing. But the culture did it because racism is such a fundamental part of and racism between black and white people. It's such a fundamental part of the historical DNA of our country that whenever you hear about a racist event between a black and a white person, it is the Lakers versus Celtics of social class beefs. It's just the reality we live in. You don't care about black on black crime. You don't care about white on white crime. But you care if a white person does something to a black, let's pay attention. There's only certain dynamics that gather that kind of attention because of the history. Same with Jews and Germans. Let's be 100% clear. If there were, I don't even watch heavyweight boxing anymore, but you best believe if the heavyweight champ of the world is Jewish and the number one contender is German and they're getting ready to go at it, the world is going to watch that fight. You don't even got to watch boxing, but you know why you're going to watch it? Because it's a Jew versus a German. It's going to bring up all of that's what this is. White versus black race is going to bring up all of that. It makes people pay attention even when you don't want to. And that's what the last 12 years was. Caitlin Clark came into a racial climate that she was just trying to play ball. Angel Reese exploited it, but not from the racial angle. Not from the racial angle. Here's the other climate. The commercial capital climate. Caitlin Clark comes into this American society. We're a capitalistic society. Private industry, finance, government don't get involved in our money, all that type of stuff, right? Caitlin Clark comes into a commercial capital climate. Angel Reese was saying what she was saying, not because she thought I'm black and she's white. I don't even think Angel Reese... Listen, let me tell you something. These younger generation, they don't care about that stuff. They don't care. Because many of them didn't grow up with those staunch differences. Angel Reese is not tripping. She went to University of Maryland for a year. That was a white school. If she really cared about that, she could have went to a HBCU. As far as I don't know the racial numbers for LSU, but I bet you I don't got LSU being no predominantly black school. Those are usually HBCUs. When these athletes be going to Dukes and South Carolinas and UConn, them ain't no black schools. These kids don't care about that stuff. Angel Reese said what she was saying. Hey, listen, people are coming to watch me too because of capital. You see, it was the first time in the recent years, in the last 2 years, that college athletes are now getting these NIL deals where they're allowed to make money for the first time. I mean, that's why some athletes are mad at that. They're like, dag, I wish they would have had that when I was coming up. Some people there's no need to leave professional college sports early. There's no need because you can make millions in college. That's going to help people stay for 4 years. Why do I need to go to the WNBA? She's making more money in college and she was making millions of dollars. Angel Reese needed that capital. She was trying to keep her name in the conversation, and that stat padding and all that. I respect that. I'm not mad at that if that's what she was doing. I don't think rebounds have ever mattered in basketball that much, and especially in the modern era. No, Asia Wilson took to the point. Asia Wilson, in a press conference a couple days ago, was told that she got a rebound record. Asia Wilson was told she broke a rebound record, and she was like, "What is it?" She said, and I'm paraphrasing, but she would say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I ain't really worried about no rebounds though." And a lot of people were like, "Oh, she just crapped on Angel Reese." She was like, "Man, I'm not really tripping over rebounds. That's not really that big of a deal to me, right?" That's just the reality. That stat it wasn't about stat padding. I don't fault her because many people, for the sake of capital, have done worse. Even the woke industry that people hate, from a capitalistic perspective, it's a success story. The woke industry became a multi-billion-dollar industry. So be mad at Robin DiAngelo if you want. What about being mad at Rockefeller and all them people that caused the Great Depression and all the white people that made millions of money off of other people's, all of it. Most black people don't own companies, right? So let's talk about outsourcing, right? Why are companies outsourcing to other? Because you don't care about Americans. You care about capital. That's why you said. That's why Apple and these other organizations, these companies, they want people in India and that because it's cheaper. Americans, it want money. You outsource everything to other countries so you can make more money. You don't care about Americans. You don't. That's why Trump in his first campaign was like, I'm going to bring the coal mines back. America first. That's why he won. Because people was like, finally, somebody cares about us. Stop outsourcing. When I call up AT&T, I don't want to hear somebody with an Indian accent. And I'm not saying it I'm just saying this is how people, you could tell this is a call center in Mumbai, India. Like you outsource everything for the sake of capital. This is our country. These people talk about how much they love America. No, you don't. Because if you really cared about Americans making money, then you wouldn't take all that money. You would let Americans make those jeans instead of these teenage kids, these 8-year-old kids in the Philippines for 8 cents a pair of jeans. You know, you got to pay Americans $15, $20 an hour. You ain't doing that because you care about that's capitalism. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's real. So Caitlin Clark comes in and the corporations are looking at the kind of excitement that she brought, the kind of viewership that she made people watch the Final Four women's sport more than the men for the first time, I think, maybe ever. I could be wrong, but it's very uncommon for that to happen. If you're a corporation, you're like, hey, people love her. We can make money from her. And that's what they do. Why would Nike not give her a shoe? She doesn't have to play a game in the day. You don't prove listen, you can be an athlete. Like there's these college athletes. There's this girl at LSU, beautiful young woman at LSU. She's like the highest paid athlete. You know why? Because she's pretty. She's a gymnast. The majority of people aren't going to be doing no triple Lindick, no back handsprings and all like that. No, it's because she's pretty and people like her, and so they're giving her money. Most people, she doesn't want a gold medal as far as I know. No, Caitlin Clark didn't have to play in the WNBA to prove herself. No, it's not about that. It's about, do people like you? Will they support your brand? And if so, we want to support your brand to make money off of you because we are a commercial capital society. Caitlin Clark stepped right in, and why wouldn't she? The average WNBA salary is $76,000. The max is maybe in the $300,000s, the max. Why wouldn't she accept a shoe deal? It's not about can you play in the W. Jordan has not played basketball in 20-something years. Michael Jordan, and his shoes still are one of the highest paid. There are kids that wear Jordans, that want Jordans, that never watched the man play. It's not about whether you played in the WNBA yet, and that's racism. It was a capitalistic society we live in. Corporations are going to say, she can make us money, so we're going to pay her for her troubles. And Caitlin Clark enters into this commercial capital climate. And it's true. Her jerseys are selling out. The revenue for the WNBA went up 450% this year. Guess which team had the majority of it? Wilson, selling out her basketballs in minutes. All this stuff, right? She came into a capitalistic climate, and she did it. And then viewership. She brings viewership, sponsorship, money's coming. They all of a sudden get chartered flights. All of this is anticipation of the money that's coming. It doesn't mean she's the only one that did it, but she's the one that made more people pay attention. And then as those sponsorship numbers come in, like me, I know a lot of other players now that these women ball. Like I'm gonna watch the WNBA championship. I ain't gonna watch these other games leading up to it because I don't really care. Caitlin's out. I'm gonna just be honest. That's the person that's the most exciting to me. But I expected her to be out first round. I expect her to be out. I knew. I said it as much. I said as much in my 2 previous videos. But I'm gonna watch the championship because she's exposed us to that. She came into a capital climate, and people got offended because they made everything be about this and not realize how corporations won. And this is what most people. I don't know if many people said this. So let me say this so that you hear it. What people don't realize is you cannot tell people who to support and what to do with their money. Who do you think you are telling people that they can't support her and buy her shoes? They got to buy this woman's shoes because she's been in the league longer. Man, get out of here. No one says, hey, you got to eat at Outback because Outback was here first. No, you don't. And this is what I feel like the left, what they call the woke industry, this is one of the things that they tried to do a lot of was manipulate people into making it shaming you for supporting things with your money that you work hard for. People ain't talk about that. You can't manipulate people if people want to buy a Caitlin Clark jersey, they can buy it if they want to. It's their money. It's their money. And that's what I think people didn't realize. You're basically offended because you want people to use their money to support you. It's the same thing with voting. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just be clear for a second. All this talk about voting, can we just keep it a thou wow for a second? Can we take it to the church? Can I get an amen? Let's just be honest about voting. When they say like we need people to get out there and vote, we need people to go. No one wants people to vote. What they want is people to vote for who they think is going to win. If people say, hey, are you voting? And you say, no, I'm not voting. Oh, man, you got to vote. And then you say, all right, I'm going to vote for the candidate opposite of you. People won't like that. They'll be offended. They don't want you to vote then, right? Let's be 100, ladies and gentlemen. Stop insulting my intelligence. Don't let them insult your intelligence. I know we the underdog, but we sharp, though. People don't care if you vote. They care if you vote for who they want to win. As soon as they know you're not going to vote for who they want, they don't even want you to vote. These teams, all of the teams that play Caitlin Clark at home, all saw their commercial and capital revenue explode in those games. They all saw it. And that made them even more mad because they thought, man, why aren't the fans coming to watch us play when it's just us? Some of us are better than her, 100%. But there was a draw to her because of the sexual, racial, and commercial climate that she was pulled in. That's why people were cheering for her. I've been watching games and be like, Caitlin Clark for 3, swag. And you hear the crowd roar. It's like, wow, ain't they playing in Seattle? I had to look and be like, wait a minute, are they at home? Or the crowd would be cheering because it wasn't about sexual, racial. It was a release, a break from just the drama of all the stuff that's happening. And the drama that was in this league prior to her getting there for the most part. Doesn't mean that people weren't good and didn't work hard to try to help this league develop, but there were too many other intangibles about this league that people were like, I can't support this. And then all of a sudden, Caitlin Clark comes and these other people come and it's like, okay, now we're back to playing ball. Forget sexuality. Forget this. Forget that. Caitlin Clark got pulled into a capital climate and they called it the Caitlin Clark effect for a reason. She's a cash cow. Lastly, she got pulled into a political climate. This is an election year. She got pulled into a political climate. So she likes a post that Taylor Swift put out, and everyone's flipping out. There were people that were attacking her that I used to support you, but how could you? Because they assumed when she was asked a question about who to vote for, that she supports Kamala Harris. Angel Reese said the same thing. She was like, I haven't, I just want to use my platform to get people to vote. She's trying to be like, I just want people to vote. Now, she may have a preference, but she wasn't letting that out. She wasn't making that known. And people got offended. There was a political climate. Everyone wants to know, who are you supporting? Who are you voting for? And Caitlin Clark was like, look, man, I'm voting for us getting to the playoffs. That's who I'm voting for. I'm voting for Christy Size to get us to the playoffs. That's what she was like. I'm not voting for. Oh, no. And I think she got pulled into a political climate. And then a political climate for America, all of these other things become center stage. Sexuality, capital, and racism. They all are political now. These are not, you cannot talk about these issues unless they're brought into the political world. You used to be able to talk about racism that was separate from these things. You could talk about sexuality, but now it's all become part of the political climate. And Caitlin Clark got pulled into that. And so even fans who loved her, I don't think they loved her at all. I think they just used her to racially, sexual, or to as sort of a punch in the mouth. Like, look, you're just mad because she's not, all Caitlin Clark fans are Caitlin Clark fans. All people that say, I want to thank the man upstairs aren't really believers in Jesus. I think the Caitlin Clark fans aren't the ones who are spitting vitriol. I think I'm sure they can, don't get me wrong. Sin is sin, right? But I think these comments about the Indiana Fever fans, it's like, well, they may say that they're in it, but we don't know that. In all honesty, any true fan understands that sports is sports, man. You may hate the opposing team, but those players don't. They hang out together all the time. They're on vacation and all of that. Caitlin Clark got pulled into all of this stuff. And that's why some of us took her side, some of us didn't. But a lot of it was she just is this is a social commentary. She just got pulled into all these different climates and balled out despite all of it. And as a former athlete and as someone who just is entertained by sports, I loved every single minute of it. One, because it was just fun to watch her ball. Two, because just by being a good basketball player, she was pushing back against the racial, the sexual, commercial, and political climates that we all live in. So just to reiterate in closing, you cannot make people support your sexuality. You cannot. You will not manipulate people to do it. I'm from the hood where I know dudes that would die to prove a point. I can promise you, I'm not agreeing with nothing that I can't clearly say that the Bible says. And I don't care who gets offended. You're not going to force people, and people are getting tired of it, and that's what we see happening in these pushbacks. You're not going to force people to just think in this racial climate. Racism is not going anywhere. It may change, it may morph, there's always going to be people who do not like people because of their color. And yes, I'm sorry, black people can be racist. All of a sudden, racism became this dumb thing about just power only. Racism is about hate and not loving your neighbor as yourself. There were times I was racist towards white people for whatever. People be wilding. That's what I mean. It's all political though. No, it's gotta be political. It's gotta be this. Nah, man. I think so. And lastly, or second to last, you cannot tell people how to spend their money. You cannot tell people what they can and can't support. It's just not gonna happen. When you playing with people's money, you know what I'm saying? You're playing with his money, Smokey. You said he had a gun when he seen him, right? Who else you know in the hood play like that? You can't play with people's money. You're not going to tell people what they can and can't support. No. And politically, we're doomed. Whoever wins, we're doomed. We're doomed. And when I say that, I don't mean like the end of the world like most people act like. No, I just think that there's no good candidate out there. Politics is all fear and selfish ambition. That's all it is. It's fear and selfish ambition. We're all doomed in that sense. That is what it is. But what do I know? Having said all that, thank you, Caitlin Clark. Well done. Thank you. I didn't think you were going to go far anyway. I'm talking to her like she's actually going to watch this video. I didn't think you were going to win it, so it doesn't bother me that you lost. But thank you. Thank you. You were a wonderful distraction from the madness of sexuality, race, capital, money, and politics that we all needed. And by needed, I just mean appreciated. Obviously, my hope is in the Lord, so I'm not as drawn to, but thank you, Caitlin Clark. It was fun. And I'm going to miss watching you play because I knew whenever you played, it was about basketball. It wasn't about these other categories. So thank you. Rest. Get some rest. Don't get injured because we want to see you come back next year and ball out. We're here for it. I want to see it. Having said that, it's a lot of. All right, let me check on some of these comments. Let me see. Let's go to the tape. If these comments are wild, I don't got time. I'm getting ready to go on a retreat, and I gotta go teach, so I don't got time. So, all right. Ernest, CC Jawbones for sure, 100%. I think she does, man. I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that. No doubt, CC coming denomination is what these NBA players and former players fear. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Get her rest and work on your game. Yeah, 100%. Woo! That's what I want to see. Her handle's gotten a lot better, but it's still not there yet. She still doesn't, like Arike Ongwale, man, her handle was just, she's shaking you and then popping and pulling up. If Caitlin really works on that part of her game, it's gotten better, don't get me wrong. But man, she's gonna be a monster. Do you know how the ratings for the other games since CC and the FIBA were eliminated? Yeah, they were. So Caitlin Clark's game. So the last game I heard was up to 3.4 million. That's what I heard. I heard that. I know the first game was 1.8 million. I heard Wednesday night's game was 3.4. Could be wrong, but all the other games were under 500,000. And I think they're going to. I mean, maybe the WNBA finals might. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe people would, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just, because I think because of all the things I just said. The Storm versus Aces game one day after record just 50%, 100%. There it is right there. If that's true, there it is. Fever game double the Aces game in number. Yep, 100%. That's it right there. Taking that shot at T.O. That's my quarterback. T.O., he was a Dallas player for a bit. And you know when you play against the Skins, we got to talk about it. All right. CC supporters hate what these CC haters subjected CC to. Maybe. The veterans like to brag that the WNBA is badass for women. CC exposed them to just be badass. Okay, yeah, I see that. I see the wordplay there. I see that, Philip. Give me all the details, brother. That's how I get down. You listen. This is how we do it on Kirk Kennedy's Corner. We gonna talk. Whether you can agree with this, I don't do this because I want everyone to agree with me. I do it because this is what I think. So it's funny when people say, I don't always agree with what you say. So what? I mean, I don't agree with anything. We don't agree with anything anybody says. You don't agree with anything your parents, spouse, children, pets, God say. I don't know why people feel the need. That doesn't bother me at all. Like I say what I think because this is how I really feel. This is what I think. I'm okay if you don't agree with it. I'm okay with that. Exactly. Now the alphabet community is going as far as now penalizing parents that don't approve of their kids. 100%, bro. 100%. There's a law in Maryland. There's something going on. There's a woman in my church that her high school did something like that. Crazy, bro. Crazy. Like you're losing your mind right now. Facts. Yep. Thank you, sir. Woman. Who cares about that? AL was the one that bought females to dressing. It's lots of them that have babies and married. Okay. Right. I agree with some things you say. Case in point, right? Thank you. Thanks for that. Reese is one that brought fashion to the league. I don't think she brought fashion to the league. I think these women, I think this is the first time that because the league is getting more attention, these women didn't come in sweatpants before Angel Reese came. She just, we see their dress. I think because these women are getting more attention, their pregame outfits are more showing how they look outside of a uniform. So I don't think that they did that. So Black Lives Matter was run by Democrats. Democrats looking for votes. So what? Everybody does that though. Like who doesn't? So only the Republicans don't do stuff for votes? I mean everybody does that. Melania Trump just did in April 7th at Mar-a-Lago in Florida at Trump, and then in New York City in May. She did a joint for log cabin Republicans. That's an LGBTQ. But so everybody does it, man. I don't think the Democrats ain't the only ones to do that. This is a capitalistic society. I just think that's what people care about: money. They don't care about values. They don't care about conviction. They care about capital. Why has society come to this? Because of capital. Because of money. You can't serve two masters. That's why. It was about money. Reese and CC, the league, said this is our money tree. 100%. I agree with that. What's up, Kurt? Hope all is well to stop. What's up, Uncle Snacks? Good to see you, family. So refreshing. Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate that. Blaze, did some people unsubscribe from your YouTube channel just because you support Caitlin Clark? 100%. Well, actually, no, let me back up. No, I can't say that. I can't say that. I don't know. This is what will happen, though. This is how it happens for me. I don't know if this happens. I'll get like a surge in followers, and then all of a sudden, the next day, I'll lose like 5 or 6 people. I have no idea why. No idea why. Now, because it's not my livelihood, sure, I want to grow the channel, but I have no idea why. So I can't say that people, but in some of the comment sections, it's clear that people are expressing their heart, right? Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Jesus said this in Matthew 15. So if I take what I've heard in some of the comments, yeah, I think people have been offended because I support Caitlin Clark as a black man. Man, get out of here, man. I think you're more balanced about this topic, but people, let me say this, Blaze. I've definitely lost friends with people because I stay balanced. I'm balanced. People do not want balance. They want, like I said, people don't want you to vote. They want you to vote for who they think should win, not who you think should win. So I think I've experienced that 100%. Yeah. It's a dope commentary, homie, and all that. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. Reese takes pride in pursuing her brand. Yes. Well, yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that. That's why I said I don't care about the stat pattern she did. I've seen people do a lot of, and like LeBron James, Bronny James in the NBA because of his dad. Man, we've seen people do nepotism all the time. I don't have no problem with that. I think, man, do you? You know what I'm saying? Well, this is the American dream, right? So they say, it's American dream. If my son can benefit off of what I did, do that. That's my son. I don't care if nepotism is only a problem sometimes when black people do it. So it's like, nah. Thank you, brother Rich. Appreciate you, bro. People like basketball. Thank you, Ernest. I think, hopefully. Can't wait for the new and improved CC next season with more moves, more shot selection, 10 pounds more muscle. Yeah, man, listen, bro. I think those numbers, 24, 12, and 8, man, I wouldn't be surprised. In this league, I don't know how many triple-doubles she almost like could have had, because there were times she was like 20 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds. I think she might average a triple-double, man. I think it's possible, bro, because she was getting there. She got way more rebounds than I thought she would get, Nike, that's for sure. 100%. Oh, no, I'm half black, half brown. You mean I'm not half racist anymore? Suicide. Nike working on the material. I see you. I second your thank you to Miss Caitlin Clark. She made the sport of basketball much 100%. And that's what it's about. That's what it's about. She just made it interesting. And that's what we needed, right? We needed a break from the drama, right? Off the Will Smith, a break from the monotony, from all that hardcore. We just needed a break. If we can't figure out basketball, heaven help us with politics. Man, heaven's been helping us. We just don't appreciate the help. Rest CC so you can come back next season and bust some of these. Yep, I think she's going to do it. She's going to do it. Imagine next season she would no longer be a puppy, but a puppy would bite. I'm telling you, you're right. She might, she's going to be 3 years old in dog years next season. I'm telling you, she's going to play. She's going to ball. She's going to ball. I'm a 7 handicap, and CC can kick on the golf course. She's that good and don't get started on her soccer skills. Yeah, see, I wouldn't even know that, but that's dope. I wouldn't even know that. That's crazy. Bro, I see your subscriber count is up. Kudos. Yeah, man, it goes up. What goes up must come down to seesaw, but I appreciate it. We're going to get to 5K, and then 5K, we're going to get to 10. We're going to keep it moving. And we're going to do it by being me. I will tune back. That's what's up, Marlon. I appreciate you, brother. You always are faithful to come back and check it out. Rewatch, 100%. Corbin, hey, bro, you seeing anybody in college that you would like on the fever that will help us? You know why I don't think like that? I think that, that's a good question, Corbin. You know what I think? I think I have to wait to see what the standings are. Because I think we do a lot of, oh man, but what if Juju or what if I just don't, because now that they made the playoffs, they ain't gonna get they're not gonna get a top pick. I don't know what pick they're gonna get. They were 6th in the league. So I don't know how they structure the order of who gets. I know that Indiana they were the worst team, so they got back-to-back number 1 picks. I don't know if they do like a lottery where I don't know how they structure it. So for me, I don't like to speculate about, and I like to speculate about realistic possibilities. So I want to see where they are in the draft, and if it's like, and then see who's out there. Like, oh, I think that person, in terms of, because there's some college people that are balling. Some of these girls are balling, but I just don't know what pick the Indiana Fever will have, especially the first round, to see like what that would be like. So I'll probably hold off on that, but that's a good question. Reese asked Swoops if she'd be interested in coaching Chicago. Swoops excitedly said yes. Hours later, Spoon got canned. Coincidence? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I think so loyalty goes a long way, right? When you've done something for an organization or for a league, sometimes they'll reward you beyond what you should be rewarded, right? Like prime example, I'm in the D.C. area, right? The DMV, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Been here my whole life. Lived in L.A. for a short period of time, but I'm a D.C. boy, right? We had before the Washington Wizards were Wizards, there was the Washington Bullets. And we were terrible for a long time because our general manager was a man named Wes Unseld. Wes Unseld won the only NBA title for the Washington Bullets back in I think I want to say, was it 77? He won an NBA championship for the Washington Bullets won, and he was the star player. So for decades, the then owner, Abe Poland, in loyalty, hired Wes Unseld, and we were terrible for a long time. Had some shining moments when we had Chris Webber in 93, right after they played in Michigan. Chris Webber and then Jawan Howard played together for a little while. And we had a couple, but we were doing gimmicky stuff. Like we got like Manute Bol and Muggsy Bogues, the tallest and shortest players in the NBA. We were just doing dumb stuff, man. So loyalty goes a long way. I think the WNBA is loyal to Cheryl Swoops because before the WNBA was popping, the Houston Comets were the talk of women's basketball. And she was on that team with Tina Thompson and some others, and they were balling. It's funny because Houston doesn't even have a team right now. But they were some of the best players in the league, and Cheryl Swoops was feared. Tina Thompson, that team was feared, man. Them women was balling. I think there's a loyalty to them, to her, because that's the way it works. The challenge I have with Cheryl Swoops is, and this is just me, right? Who am I? What do I know? I think as a basketball coach, you were obligated as best as possible to be impartial, right? To be impartial. You want to, because you're the leader of young people who are going to largely follow your leadership, right? You're the leader of it. I think Teresa Witherspoon got fired because she was trying to do too much of relating to and connecting with these women. When she was Angel Reese, it was about doing that with her, but then that alienated so many other players. And so Marina Marbury, who I'm glad I bet you she's glad because she wanted to get traded with the Connecticut Sun, and now they're in the next round of playoffs. She balled out the first game against Caitlin Clark and them, right? Like you had all this turmoil. There's all this drama because Teresa Witherspoon was trying to figure this out, and Angel Reese had a lot of influencer control. And honestly, influencers that are more popular than a coach. Think about how many people were calling for Christy Sides to be fired. I think she did a great job. They were calling. She's not the smart. Yeah, she got to grow as a coach, but because of that popularity. So I think Cheryl Swoops is not proven to be impartial. So I think if she's the head coach, I think it would be out of loyalty rather than wisdom, because I think she's just too. She might have basketball knowledge, but so did Teresa Witherspoon. She wasn't no slouch in college and in the pros. That's basketball knowledge doesn't get it. There's a different kind of mental work that you have to have, mental competency to be a coach. That's why Jordan, arguably the greatest player to ever play the game, was a terrible GM. Terrible GM. He just didn't have it. He was a good player, but guess who's one of the best coaches in the history of the NBA? His teammate, Steve Kerr, that was not a superstar on the team. He won 3 championships with Jordan, but he won other. Jordan doesn't have Steve Kerr's coaching ability or ability to understand the game from that angle. So again, just because you were a good college player or a good pro doesn't mean you can actually coach. That's a totally different ballgame. Different. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was coincidence. If it wasn't coincidence, but it is what it is. All right, a couple more and I got to get out of here. I still have my Washington Bullet baseball cap. Westy, the best outlet pass in the history. Oh, I see you, Nike. I see you. Let me find out. You know what I'm saying? Let me find out. Off subject a little bit, but how can we hear some of your music you put out back in the day? So if you're talking about if you go to any streaming services, you pull up Kirk Kennedy, most of my albums, there's only one album that's not there I need to put back up. If you're talking about voice, like when I was doing voice music, if you're one of those people that voice, then I'd say email me. Email me at kurtkennedy@me.com. If you're talking about voice stuff, and I may be able to and be specific about what you're asking for. But most of the Kirk Kennedy music is up. I'm getting ready to drop a new project in 2 weeks, 2 Fridays from now. I'll build it up through the channel, but it should be good. It's a different kind of project. It's going to be dope. But I appreciate you asking, man. Thank you. Yep, Cynthia Cooper, Tina Thomas, Swoops. Man, they were nice, bro. Weren't they though? Nice, bro. They was the cleanup crew. Cleanup crew. If you were to let go 3 fevers right now, who would it be? I'd let go Nalissa Smith. I think she's a problem. I'd let go Christy Wallace. She brings no value to the team. And I would probably let go of Femi Tagmenle. I think when she first came, even Katie Lou Samuelson, like these are all, and Katie Lou Samuelson has a max contract, I think. She's like $350,000. They're liabilities. I would let go all of there's a lot of liabilities, so it's hard to name 3. But if I were to pick 3, I'd let Lanissa Smith go. I think she's just more psychologically, she's a head basket. I think Temi Fact, you need another player that maybe she was still injured and she wasn't able to. When she first came, it was like, okay, she's running with Caitlin Clark doing her thing, but then other people have called up. So maybe she's not the player that I would drop. Maybe it would be Nalissa Smith for sure, Christy Wallace for sure. I think Damaris should move to the starting five. I would put Damaris in the starting five next season. She's a little chubby, but I got a special place in my heart for chubby people. But I think she can shoot, man. She can shoot. She got post up. I would put Damaris in the starting five. I think she should start over Fag Benley because she doesn't have to run the floor as much. Kelsey Mitchell is the road runner, man. She's Speedy Gonzalez, bro. Underlay, Eva. She's gone. So you got her. You got Lexi Hall's going to improve. Lexi Hall's going to get better because, now that she's seeing what it's like to be Caitlin Clark. Yeah, but those are the players I'd probably let go. But all right, man, I appreciate y'all watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. I gave y'all some real commentary, social commentary. You know what I'm saying? I gave y'all that. But so like and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep the channel growing. I appreciate y'all. Thanks so much. And I will see y'all. My next video will probably be tomorrow. I'm probably doing 2 videos tomorrow. Yeah, we got something to talk about. All right. See you when I see you. Peace.